Hey everybody. I was doing a little research this morning and I came across a forum thread and I read a question from a beginner fish keeper, and before I got to the question I had to read an entire paragraph of them apologizing for buying the fish from a big chain pet store. They talked about how they knew it was their fault and they had this coming to them and they should have known better and so on and so forth. But now that I'm in this situation, can somebody please help me? And whatever their question was isn't that terribly important. What the point of this video is going to be is my thoughts on big chain pet stores. We get a lot of discussion about local fish stores versus big chain pet stores in this hobby, and for some reason there always seems to be this distinction that your local fish stores are always good and the big chain pet stores are always bad. And by always bad, I mean bad in every circumstance. They're always going to try to sell you fish whether you've got room for them or not, whether you've got the skills to take care of them or not. They're just always going to push fish on you. They always keep their fish in terrible conditions. They always have bad stock. They always have employees that know nothing about fish and don't care about the fish. And I find that not to be true in a lot of cases. And I also find it very curious why these things seem to be exempt from your local fish store. In my experience, your little local fish store has a lot more incentive to push merchandise and sell fish than your big chain pet stores. Your average employee at a big chain pet store has probably been given those sort of rules that if you don't think somebody should keep a fish, then you've got the authority not to. And I've seen lots of times where those people don't send a fish home with somebody. Very few times at little local fish stores will you see somebody not sell somebody a fish because they don't have room for it. It happens, but it's got to be that shop. It's got to be that fish keeper guy. It's got to be the way the owner of that store runs that store and the staff he keeps. If he's not scrupulous, then you don't get that from that shop. There's no guarantee that just because it's some local shop that they're going to be honest about things, or that they're going to keep their fish in good condition, or that they're going to get them from good breeders, or that you're going to get better prices or whatever. I've never understood this idea that local fish stores are always better than big chain pet stores. When it comes to the stock itself, one of the benefits of local fish stores in a lot of cases is you'll get a variety of stock. They will deal with smaller breeders, they'll deal with individual hobby keepers that might have a fish that had babies or something, or they got a fish that's outgrown a tank. So you do get the variety at your local fish stores. That's usually one benefit you can kind of generalize with your smaller fish stores, whereas with your larger fish stores they usually have pretty set stock lists. They might rotate it a little bit, a few of the fish change here and there during the season, you know, but for the most part you're always going to get the same thing from the big chain pet stores. So that's a big difference. But when it comes to the neons at your local fish store, I really don't think they get special neons from some special breeder that breeds them in any different conditions than the mass-produced, you know, dealers that sell them to the big chain pet stores at the same time. Probably a lot of those kind of fish come from the same places, are kept in the same kind of conditions, and so on and so forth. So again, this whole idea that the stock is a lot different is not necessarily true either. When it comes to the employees, I've been in big chain pet stores. I mean, they've got to hire new people, and those new people don't necessarily have experience. This idea that everybody in your local fish store just knows everything there is to know about fish, and of course they're also going to be scrupulous and honest, and they're never going to, you know, bamboozle you or sort of bluff and act like they know more than they, you know, that never happens in a local fish store. And I just don't know where this idea comes from. That happens a lot in these local fish stores. Again, in my experience, it happens more in the local fish store. In the big chain pet stores, you're much more likely to get somebody to say, I don't know, I just got hired here 2 weeks ago. You know, okay, that's fine. You know, when you go into a local fish store or a big chain pet store, you got to have realistic expectations. If I go into a Petco or a PetSmart, I know they don't hire marine biologists to be on staff to answer my questions. More often than not, when I go in these places, I know far more than the staff does. And I know that going in. I do whatever research I need to do or whatever, and I might have a chat or talk to somebody or whatever, and certainly when you're new, you don't have any choice, but just go into these big chain pet stores knowing it's a pretty good chance you've got somebody that doesn't know a lot about fish. The upshots to that is they're usually a lot more conveniently located, the prices are a lot better. I mean, right now the neons at one of my local big chain pet stores, which for me is local, it's a 15-minute drive versus an hour drive to the good fish store where the neons are $3 a piece, and I get no guarantee if they die. I can go 15 minutes, the neons are $1 a piece, and if they die, I've got 2 weeks to get my money back for them. So there's benefits to going to the big chain pet store versus the little local store. It just depends on what I want and how much time I have, how much money I want to spend. You know, do I want to go buy special neons somewhere? Do I want to go buy them at the big chain pet store? If you want to go buy the $3 neons because you think they're better neons, knock yourself out. For me, I personally don't. And the idea of attacking people for shopping at a big chain pet store, especially when you consider, in a lot of cases, a lot of people don't have a choice. A lot of people have to go to places like Walmart that, in my opinion, shouldn't be selling fish at all. It's like a dry goods store. If you can buy your, car batteries and groceries there, you probably shouldn't be buying live animals. Big chain pet stores, at least they're pet stores and they're geared around pets. They generally have at least somebody on staff that has a better understanding of how the nitrogen cycle works and how an aquarium cycle in the fish tank works and so on and so forth, rather than like a dry goods type store. But if the dry goods store that sells fish is what you've got to buy your fish from, you shouldn't feel guilty for having to go there. I know it's a bummer that you got to go there, and it would be nice if nobody had to shop at those kinds of places, but that's just not the world we live in. And to attack people for going to those places or for shopping at a PetSmart or a Petco or whatever your big chain pet store is in your part of the world is just ridiculous. They both have their pros and they both have their cons. You're not a bad person if you shop at a big chain pet store, and you're not some super elite fish keeper if you only shop at the local fish store. It just means you often pay more money for the same fish that other people get, closer to home or whatever. Again, I've never understood this idea that local fish stores are always better. I'm sure some are. I've been in some, I don't like using names, but in this case I will. I have two Petcos. Two PetSmarts that are located about the same distance from me. I can go this way to one or I can go that way to the other, and they're about 15-20 minute drive. Vastly different stores. The attitude of the employees, the management, the quality of the fish, the cleanliness of the tanks, it's completely different than the one over this way. So even within the same chain, it still depends on the people that are in the store, their attitude, the management, how they want to run it. They get the fish from the same place. How do they take care of it? How do they treat their customers when they're in there? Are they honest with people? That largely is going to depend on the store itself. And the idea that small stores are immune from bad stuff and large stores are always prone to it, again, is simply not realistic. And you just shouldn't feel bad for going to a big chain pet store. Just go into it knowing what you're going. If you go there and you ask the people some complicated questions about some fish disease and you grumble that the 18-year-old kid that's working there after high school doesn't know the answer, well, that's on you. You had unrealistic expectations going into the situation, and therefore you were let down by your unrealistic expectations. If you go in there knowing you're probably going to deal with somebody that doesn't know a lot about fish, but you're going to get a decent quality fish at a low price, and it's going to have a return guarantee if it does die. Alright, now you're kind of in the ballpark of what you should realistically expect when you go into a big chain pet store. And again, the evilness of the big chain pet stores, I've never understood that. I do most of my shopping at the big chain pet stores. In fact, most of the fish you see around here in my fish room are from the big chain pet stores. My more unique fish and my more unusual fish come from probably more specific sources, but my tenopoma, some of my cool catfish, my angelfish, a lot of them come from the big chain pet stores. And then of course all the smaller stuff, all the guppies, all the neons, mollies, skirt tetras, stuff like that, I would never spend the money at the local fish store. I got to drive an hour to get there. I spend twice as much money, and I might get a fish that's been kept in better conditions or whatever, but my luck with the big chain pet store, I usually get pretty good fish from them, and it's you know, again, it's no big deal to me to shop at the big chains. So that's my 2 cents, or maybe 5 cents or whatever. I don't really know how long I've been rambling here. It usually tends to go longer than I anticipated. But thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't forget, I do have another video that I'm going to be working on real soon where I talk about quarantining your fish from a real world point of view. I know we all think that all fish should always be quarantined all the time, but that's not always realistic for every fish keeper out there, and so I want to share my thoughts on that as well. And if you enjoyed this kind of video, you can make sure you're subscribed and you won't miss it. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.